Okay, we're on. Adam, can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think my mic was off. I tried to speak.
Okay.
Oh my God.
We can hear you.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see the text?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So, Assalamu Alaikum. So, Masha Allah, we're here to attend the Quran study. So we pray to God that to increase our knowledge. And this is absolutely blessing that we're here. Anything good happens to us is from God. A couple of quick facts about this surah. Is the longest surah is surah number 2 and then number 4. But if you count the number of verses, surah 26 is the second longest. Another amazing thing about it is that God is talking about different prophets, and every time God talks about prophet, what happened at the end, God says this word, then most surely your Lord is Almighty, most merciful. Then it goes to the next prophet. And after Shoaib, then God talks about the Quran. And that's last. So, inshallah, I'll be reading from verse number 10, Surah Moses. I mean, so has subtitle is Moses. But a couple of things, just talk about the little background on this surah starts from the miracle of TSN. And then God is saying that you blame yourself, they're not believer. So this happens to pretty much anyone who will preach God's message with the Quran alone and miracle of 19. You feel that people don't believe, and we start to blame ourselves. So though it's specifically for prophet and the messenger, but we can also, it's a comforting for us too, because this message is for us, that whenever you come preach Quran with God's message and showing people miracle 19, and you just start scratching yourself, I mean, your head, what's going on? People are not accepting. This is so easy. So God is saying this has been the case every time this happens. This is the result. You are not alone. So don't feel bad. So I'm going to read from Surah, verse number 10. So God says the heading is Moses. So it's a story about what happens to Moses. That recall your Lord called Moses, go to the transgressing people, Pharaoh's people, perhaps they reform. He said, my Lord, I fear lest they disbelieve me. I may lose my temper, my tongue gets tied. Send my brother Aaron. So if you read Surah number 20, there's some other part of the conversation that happened with Moses and God, where he's saying that cool my temper, untie my knot, and send my brother so we can commemorate and remember you more and more. And this fills up the rest part of the conversation where God is telling to go to the transgressing people. And then God answers that who are the transgressing people? God could have said, go to Pharaoh's people who are transgressing, but it's the way how God talks. Like go to God labeling them as transgressing people, Pharaoh's people, perhaps they reform. So here to understand is God knows the future. God knows exactly that at the end, as we learned that only two people believe. At the final chapter of this story where Moses were at the gates, where he tells them to enter, but only two people were taking heed. So God knows all this stuff going on. Only two people will believe. But one can say, why send Moses? They're not gonna. God already knows Pharaoh's not gonna believe. So if somebody knows the future, they'll object to that. Then why send Moses? But this is God's system, that it's not the God who make Pharaoh disbelieve. It's Pharaoh's own choice. God, this is the free will comes to understand that God, it was God's system. God will send message and give them the signs, and there's a people they choose freely whether they want to be with God or not, even though God knows the future. But that has nothing to do with their decision. Decision is their own decision. So this is remember when we were up in heaven, and angels say, why are you sending these people to earth? They're going to cause all corruption and killing and all that stuff. God knows. God says, I know that you do not know. So this is God's system, though God knows the future, but this is how it works. And what does Moses say? That I fear lest they disbelieve me. See, this sort of start with blaming yourself that they don't believe. So it's our mentality. Whenever we come across people and we just some kind of hesitant to tell the message, oh, they're not going to believe us. It's not our job. Our job is, if you get the opportunity, if you have time, or you give the message. Don't think that they're going to disbelieve. It's not our job. Our job is, if somebody wants to listen, you give them the message. That's it. To that same way, Moses feeling that they're going to disbelieve me. And then what he's saying, I may lose my temper, my tongue gets tied. So we understand Moses have a couple of issues, that the temper, where he kills the guy, and but he stand up for the wrong reason. When something wrong happens, he stand up. We learn from Surah 18. He when he was going, the three incident happens. He lost his patience, because he stands up for, why you killed the guy, why do you bore a hole in the boat. So we know some little bit understanding about Moses, his personality. So, and Moses also understand that he has his temper problem. So he tells God that, cool my temper, and also says here that I may lose my temper, so send my brother. So he's asking, so you have now two people going together, so that gives you support. So he's praying to God, and God fulfills his prayer. And then yeah, so let me see if I have any. Okay. Here's verse 1869. He says, "You will find me, God willing, patient." This is from Surah number 18. That when they were ready to go, so, but we know that he doesn't stay patient, and he object to every time something happens. And here's verse 7, 150, when Moses come back, and he gets very angry and disappointed, and he throws down the tablets. I mean, imagine if you just have been gifted from God these tablets, and you throw away the tablets in anger. I mean, someone will think that God would get upset with Moses, but look at the reason. Because the reason he is getting upset is because love for God and respect. That, what are you guys doing? And at the same time, he's throwing down those tablets, but God gives the tablet back to him, and he pulls his brother Aaron in anger. So he knows a little bit about Moses, but he stood up for wrong reasons. He doesn't. He remember when he left Egypt, and he was helping those two girls. So he has good personality, but he stand up for something bad happens. And this surah ends with also the same kind of words that we understand, to stand up for your rights. Okay, so let's go to the verse number 14. So it says, also they consider me a fugitive. I fear lest they kill me. He said, no, they will not. Go with my proofs. We will be with you listening. Go to Pharaoh's and say, we are messengers from the Lord of the universe. Let the children of Israel go. So if you look at the situation here, Moses left in fear. He was from the children of Israel, and Moses, Pharaoh's already know, and his situation is so bad. Now, even consider going back there is a big thing, but now he has to go back because God is telling him, and preach the message of God. And Pharaoh's think he's God, he's Lord of the area. And so just imagine the situation is so worse. He's run away, he's fugitive, he's fear for his own life. At the same time, he's going back to the palace of Pharaoh, and then telling him that, no, you are not the Lord of you. There's a Lord of the universe, is someone else. Just the whole picture. And if you look at if you watch the movie, the Ten Commandments, you can pretty much imagine how fearful the situation is. But what does Moses say when God tells him, no, they will not? They will not. Go with my proofs. We will be listening with you. So imagine that this is also a sort of a message for us too, that you shall put your whole trust in God. So when God says, no, they will not. So he trusted God, and he went there. He wasn't hesitant. We learn from some other prophets that they become fearful, but Moses, he went. God, that's probably why God chose him. And that takes a lot of courage from somebody who, and for us to learn that we need to put our whole trust in God. And God says that we are the messenger. Tell them, you and Aaron, go to them, that from the Lord of you, and let the children of Israel. Imagine walking in that palace with all those things against you, and telling that no, you are not Lord, and let the children of Israel go. That's a lot of courage for someone. So let's go to the next verse. Then he said, did we not raise you from infancy, and you spent many years with us? Then you committed the crime that you committed, and you were ungrateful. He said, indeed, I did it when I was astray. Then I fled when I feared you, and my Lord endowed me with wisdom and made me one of the messengers. You are boasting about that you did a favor while enslaving the children of Israel. So here you understand. Then, so when he goes to the Pharaoh, so how does Pharaoh respond? He said, "Did we not raise you?" Because he's talking about that I did favor for you. We raised you. You spent so many years with. This is how you're gonna be paying back to us by telling us all this. Like the word used here, highlight, is ungrateful. This is our mentality. Like when we do something for someone, and we expect at least a thank. Just imagine how God will, when God has done so much for us, like pretty everything good comes from God. God has created us, initiated us, our soul, our mind. We come to this world, to heaven, and then gave us another chance. And God has provided with everything. And why? Then we begin to understand that why God wants us to be grateful to Him. And this is exactly, he's thinking, Pharaoh, that, oh, I did this, and he's expecting from his people too that they need to be grateful to him. So, and he's realizing them. So what is Moses' response to his, that he understands that he did indeed what he did. And he said, at that time I was astray. I was on the wrong path. But then what happened is that he was fearful. That's why he left. And then when he left, then he said, but my Lord endowed me with wisdom and made me one of the messengers. So he's telling that you are not my Lord, first of all. My Lord is the Lord of the universe. So he's telling Pharaoh, first of all, you are not my Lord. And when I fear you, I left here. But when my Lord gave me the wisdom, now I'm here back with you. And then he's again, he's standing up for the people. He said, you are boasting that what you did favor for me. Like you're talking about, you raised me all that, but while you enslaving the children, and not to mention the killing of the newborns, boys, that he was doing all this horrible things. So at the same time, you're telling me what you did for me, but what you did to my people, then again, that takes a lot of courage for someone to do that. And but he was trusting God. That's what he was doing. That my Lord is with me, and he's listening. God said that we will be listening with you. Uh, Verse number 23. And the Pharaoh said, what is the Lord of the universe? He said, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and everything between them. You should be certain about this. He said to those around him, did you hear this? He said, your Lord and the Lord of of your ancestors. He said, your messenger who sent to you is crazy. He said, the Lord of the east and the west, and everything between them, if you understand. So there's a lot of he said. But if you read them, that you can, it comes to understand that. So Pharaoh is saying, what is the Lord of the universe? I mean, the way he put this sentence, what is the Lord of the universe, it's in insulting way, anger. And he probably doesn't like Moses, and what message he brought and all that, and he's with all these people around him. And the way the statement is, he could have said, who is the Lord of the universe? And what is the Lord of the universe? And if you look at the wording here, so, and then Moses says in verse number 24, the Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything between them, you should be certain about this. So in response to Pharaoh, he doesn't get upset. See, he's controlling his, God is controlling his temper. He could have lose his temper at that point, but he's responding with such a good statement that's saying the Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything between them. That's such a good response to someone. I mean, you show you don't get angry. You don't show. I mean, things could have gone very wrong at that point, but his response is so good. Then he said, "You should be certain about this." And this statement, this should be applied to all of us. That this are we certain about this? If we are certain about the Lord of the heaven and earth and everything between them is God alone, then this should be sufficient for us that we should must put our all trust in God, and we should be certain about this. If we are certain about this statement, verse number 24, our life will become problemless completely, because in no matter in which situation you are, imagine Moses have gone through such a hard trouble in the lion's den he was in, but God saved him from out of all that. So if you put your full trust in God, no matter what situation you are, you know that God will take care of you, no matter what. And verse 25, and this is Pharaoh talking. He said to those around him, "Did you hear that?" Just imagine this word. Did you hear that? Another mocking statement that like they're laughing at Moses. That like did you hear what nonsense he's talking about? Very like negative type of statement. Again, Moses does not lose his temper. He could have get angry. Remember when he threw down tablets? So you can expect that kind of behavior, but he doesn't lose. God is controlling his temper. He said another very logical response to his statement. He said, "Your Lord and the Lord of your ancestor, like your ancestor. You making fun of the Lord of the universe? He's the Lord of your ancestors." Now here, Pharaoh gets a little angry. What does he call? And then how does he respond? So this is 20 verse 26. This is Pharaoh talking. Your Lord and the Lord of your no sorry 20 verse 27. This is Pharaoh talking. He said, "Your messenger who is sent to you is crazy." See how step by step Pharaoh is losing his temper. He's calling him crazy. But then look at Moses again. He's very patient. Masha Allah. Look at his verse 20. He said, he didn't say, "Oh, you are crazy. You calling yourself Lord, you this and that, blah, blah, blah." No, no. What a beautiful response. He says, "The Lord of the East and the West and everything between them, if you understand." I mean, what a beautiful conversation. One side is mocking and angry and insulting, another side is just responding with such a beauty. This teaches us to, whenever you encounter any kind of situation where you're telling somebody, you be patient, you and pray to God, and just like Moses can pray, "Cool my temper and make me the patient one," this is for us too. When we talk to people, that we don't lose our temper, we show good best behavior. So what does he say? The Lord of the East and the West and everything between them, if you understand. So, like, all you need is just understanding. If you put two and two together, just imagine that you don't give any birth. You don't control where the sun comes from. This is just like when Abraham told that my Lord can bring, paraphrasing, the sun from the east, and can you bring it from west? So these are all very common sense. We look around ourselves. We don't grow the vegetation, all the stuff going on. So this is a very simple thing he logic he gives him, that if you understand. So let me go to the next one, verse number 29. So this was 28, sorry, 29. He said, "If you accept any god other than me, I will throw you in the prison." He said, "What if I show you something profound?" He said, "Then produce it, if you are truthful." Then he threw his staff, whereupon it became a profound snake. And he took out his hand, and it was white to the beholders. So here, like, all this stuff happened, and then now Moses know that he has the magic card that he's gonna pull out to show him that he knows that everything will change. So he says, but before that, this is Pharaoh talking in verse number 29. He's warning his people around himself, because that's his ego. He thinks he's God. Remember, another place he say, "Build a tower so I can go see the God of Moses." and he says, I think he's lying. So he's very confident in himself. He completely these things. He's God. He's Lord, and this and that. So he says, if you accept any god other than me, I will throw you in the prison. So uh, this is all he can do. He doesn't even understand that people are dying in front of him. Nobody lives forever. He has seen many people die. He doesn't control life and death. These are basic concepts that anybody can understand. And what's the worst punishment that he can give? And remember when the magician fell prostrate, he said, I will cut your hand in opposite directions. And he said, so what? This is all you can do, basically. We'll go back to our God. So what kind of worst punishment that you can give? And he's boasting about, if you accept any God. But what did the Moses says in verse number 30, that if I show you some proof from my Rabb, that will that convince you? Then he now here Moses Pharaoh is talking in verse number 31. So then produce. Okay, so he's saying that, okay, if you have something, if you're truthful, then let us see what you got. So in verse 32, when he threw down the staff, it becomes a profound snake, and when he took out his hand, it was white to beholders. So remember that when God sends a miracle to a community, it all depends on which situation. If God would have sent these people a miracle of 19, they would have not understand. It was for their time and their understanding. It was a magical time. Uh, so this would make sense for them. Now we have a proof of miracle of 19, which is a computer age. So we can appreciate something that the time of era we live in. So for them, this was a amazing thing. So and we should understand that God is running everything, the true God. Yeah, when we accept any other God, now we should know that how bad that is, because look at, Pharaoh is calling himself God, and he gets angry, but the true God is the one God, and we accept any other God beside. Just imagine how our Lord, who has done everything. Imagine your parents raised you, and they spend all this time and money and effort and everything and love, and you go thank somebody else. How would your parents feel? So this is just a same type of thing. uh, then verse number 34, he said to the elders around him, this is an experienced magician. He wants to take you out of your land with his magic. What do you suggest? They said, despite him and his brother, and send summoners to every town. Let them summon every experienced magician. So let me see. Okay, let me see the time. So verse 34, he says, he said to his elder around him, this is an experience. So when this happened, that when he threw down the staff and became a profound snake, and the white arm, so this was something very, very amazing. It was shocking to them because they were not expecting that. They were just thinking that he was just going to do some small card tricks or something like that. But when they saw such amazing, this really shocked him. Otherwise, they would not have gone that extent. When he wants, and then he says he wants to take you out of your land with his magic. What do you suggest? So this is not we're not talking about something even in their time. It was something amazing. They were all the people around him, they were shocked. Otherwise, just imagine, they would not go to that extent to do something. So now they wants to, this is now the ego is kicking in. Pharaoh have become defensive, and he wants to show off his people, like, okay, if you think this is good, I'm going to show you what I can do. So what's their plan is, the people around them say respite him, because they don't want to just throw him out. At the same time, they want to show his people that what they can do. Just imagine, if you're challenged, if somebody come and challenge you something, and then you want to respond with something. Otherwise, if you run away, if you throw Moses out at this point, it will be negative in their part. People will say, oh, Pharaoh became feared because that magic, that what they showed was amazing, and he's hiding away. So now he's caught in his own web, that he's ego, he's think he's God, and he's this and that. Now he has to do something, otherwise it will be a lot of negative in this part. So to save his ego, what is he doing? He's saying there, people are telling him, advising him, don't despite his brother and sister, and sent summons to every town. Now, see the highlighted word, every town, and then every experienced magician. Now, that is cream of the pie, like the best of the best. Now, they really want to show Moses or what we can do for They want to protect themselves. So every experience, this does not leave anyone. And this not even talking about the street magicians. These are the expert of the expert. Every town from in Pharaoh's kingdom. And then let's see if I miss anything. Yes. So they do realize that this is not a joke. That's why they are going to that extent to get all the magicians into their. So verse number 38. So the magicians were gathered at the appointed time on the appointed day. The people were told, "Come on, and all, let us gather together here. Maybe we will follow the magicians if they are winners." So here you come to understand that the magicians, just imagine the amount of effort to take to send some people all over the towns, amount of effort and going out and checking. It's like those, you see those idol shows and everywhere they go to different towns and they try to call people, those American idols and then those Indian idols, and there's thousands of people comes and they sing, and they from all the crowd they pick the top one, and from the top one then they sort out they're not good ones. So imagine they're going to each town and calling for the magicians to gather, and they see the people's magic, and they shifting out the weak ones and picking up the good ones when I'm the cream of the cream. And that takes a lot of effort. And then at the top of that, calling other people because they want to gather all as many people as they can. Obviously, they don't have those live TV, so people have to be lively present to see all this. So they call. I mean, I don't know how many people they could have gathered. So just imagine the amount of effort getting all the magicians and all the people in one place to show all this. And then verse number 40, this is maybe we will follow the magicians if they are the winners. So now, what are the Pharaoh and the people are saying? Now they are really, really challenging, and then they want to show off and this and that. So now, if this was just for magic, they're going to follow. No, they should be at least what they're saying, they should follow it. So when they're saying, if we're going to follow the magicians, if they're the winners, but what if Moses is the winner? I mean, can you at least stay what you committed? You're committing that the magician's winner will follow them. But if Moses wins, at least stay on what you said. So then you must follow Moses. But they get angry and they walk away. So I I I wanted to finish at verse 40. If you want, I can finish at 45. But we have a little bit time. It's up to you. Then we can talk about the experts see the truth. So inshallah, I can go up to 45. That's okay. Verse 41. When the magicians came, they said to Pharaoh, "Do we get paid if we are the winners?" He said, "Yes, indeed, you will even be close to me." Moses said to them, "Throw what you are going to throw." They threw their ropes and sticks and said, "By Pharaoh's majesty, we will be the victors." Moses threw his staff, whereupon it swallowed what they fabricated. So, so when the magicians they're like they know that they were like top of the top people, and they're coming to Pharaoh, and they're expecting, they're demanding, they're gonna get paid if they are winners, because that's what they concern. And what Pharaoh says, indeed, you'll be there. Not only they'll be paid, they'll be even high rank with Pharaoh. And what's the word says that and Moses telling them, okay, throw what you are going to throw. So they say that by Pharaoh's majesty, like they are also expecting him as God. So just imagine that you think you're God, and then they are saying with Pharaoh's majesty and all these people. If he, inshallah, you know the story. When the magicians fell prostrate, I mean, Pharaoh can only see the whole situation, and why would you blame Moses for anything? But here they're calling your name in majesty, like we calling God's name, but these people, these magicians, are calling your name, and we will be victors. And they're saying they are confident about it. And then Moses threw his staff, whereupon it swallowed what they fabricated. So it doesn't justify to yes, because the time, inshallah, the next person will cover the rest of the story. But this is a very fascinating story, to so much to learn. We understand that Moses has been mentioned so many times in the Quran and his story, that there is so much we can learn from the story of Moses. Many lessons. It's just, we just need to open our eyes and come to the Quran and reading, and the God will open up your eyes and everything. And this is we're stopping in verse 45. Inshallah, there's a lot more to talk about this Prophet Moses. And but I mean, God gives him, so God tells him that I have made it you for me, and inshallah. So I'll stop here, and we can talk about comments and questions, inshallah. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, Adam, you did a very good job.
So, mashallah.
Masha Allah. Thanks, Adam. Great study.
Mashallah.
Praise God.
Praise God.
MashaAllah, thank you. So I guess at this point, if anybody has any comments or questions, you can go ahead.
I actually have one comment. No, question. It's not important for salvation, but it's just a question. In first, I know Moses came to take the people out of Egypt, and so that would have been the Israelites. So in verse 34, I think refuge in God from Satan rejected. He said to the elders around him, "This is an experienced magician. He wants to take you out of your land with his magic. What do you suggest?" So the elders, does that mean that the elders was actually Israelites? Because it says he wants to take you out of your land. So, but Moses did not came to take the Egyptians out of their land. He came to take the Israelites out of the land. So does that mean that the elders around the Pharaoh was all Israelites?
That's a good question. I never pay attention to that. I wouldn't think that, because they don't value children of Israel. You know, they were like their slaves, so they wouldn't be in the palace with Moses.
But we also know that Haman, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name properly, was an Israelite and he had a high position. So there were Israelites who did have a high position.
Do you mean Haman?
Yes. Thanks.
Welcome.
And you know, the only reason I ask the question is like I find that history repeats itself, because a lot of times evil is being done to a nation. Sometimes the people who help to facilitate that evil is who the evil is being done against. Those are some of the same people who's helping to facilitate that evil.
Can you elaborate?
Like for example, in the days of Hitler, right? People claims that Hitler was so wicked and things like that, and maybe he was. But a lot of the people who helped facilitate whatever is supposedly Hitler was doing was a lot of Jews. They helped Hitler facilitate what he was doing against the other Jews. That's according to what I read.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that sort of makes sense too, because in India, when British came, there were a lot of high-ranking Indians in the government, because you need them to control their own people. That makes sense.
Yeah, Adam, that's what I meant.
Mm. Yeah, he's not asking Egyptians to go with him. He's asking to send the children of Israel. All right.
I think for verse 34, he said to the elders around him, "This is an experienced magician," meaning that if Moses, that the elders, that people who are around Pharaoh would follow Moses and leave Pharaoh uh, without influence, and may lose his power and be overthrown by another king from or something like that. What do you think?
He could also mean that, I mean, consider this your land now, right? Even if they were slaves or local people. Um, he thought like he's gonna make everybody vanish from there, including them. Probably, I don't know. Because he's talking about with his magic. What do you suggest? Probably take over and then kick them out.
Yes, he's afraid. Pharaoh is panic. He says, "Well, this man is produced a great magic here. They're going to follow him, and so if those leaders, elders around Pharaoh followed Moses, he will lose his his stature, and he will be his power will be weakened, and yeah, that things will then change for him, uh, maybe."
Yeah,
How are
but
you?
good. Alhamdulillah. How are you, Yusuf? Salam alaikum.
Alhamdulillah. Alaikum salam. Alaikum
Welcome.
salam to all of you.
Yeah, I think everything that Pharaoh says in his statements is a lie. Like he says, versus he wants to take you out of your land with his magic. First, it's not magic. Secondly, it's not their land. And he also says, and he wants to destroy your ideal way of life, which is not anything but ideal, because they're enslaved and oppressed and, overworked and abused, but he's putting it out like, oh, you have it so well here, and look, he's here to destroy it and, make you suffer and all that, trying to manipulate the people, basically.
Yeah. What Pamela is asking is that could these elders be one of the enslaved people working for him with prominent position?
Yeah, because he's asking the children of Israel to go, right? So
No, he's asking to the elders around him. This is
right,
an
but only his demand is only for the children of Israel to go with him. So if so, yeah, definitely that means those people are from the children of Israel. That
right.
yeah,
That was her question actually. Yeah. But some working for him at this position, some working as, manual labor, but all working for him.
Yeah.
like Karun was one of them, right? He was a
Yeah.
he was a slave driver. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have a comment from verse 10 and 10, 11 and stuff. So, recall that your Lord called Moses, go to the transgressing people, Pharaoh's people, perhaps they reform. He said, my Lord, I fear lest they disbelieve me. So God's promise is that, God is so just that God knows the most evil people, they're transgressing people. This guy, these pharaohs call themselves gods and whatnot, and enslave people, completely unjust. And God's first mercy is that He's sending His messengers to, no matter how bad people are, God wants them to reform so they can be saved. Why else God want them to reform? Obviously, God wants them to not to go to hell and reform for this life and be nice around people here and in the hereafter. So God never annihilates any community without sending messengers, warners to them. That's God's promise, if the people have no knowledge, obviously on the day of judgment they will have excuse like, what did we know? We were in this community who had never heard about God or his or salvation or heaven and hell and everything. So God sends Moses to these most transgressing people. The first mission is to reform the people, that they become just and have peace on the earth and become believers. Then he showed so many miracles, so much he taught them during his life, kept inviting. The journey of Moses' message is so full of facing so much difficult tasks by this very mighty opponent throughout his life. And then those people were so wicked. No matter what blessings God sent upon them, they were unappreciative people and they had gone wicked, whether they were slaves or the masters themselves. This is the story of Moses. A lot to learn from stories of Moses um, in the history of Quran and previous scriptures. That's all. just wanted to add to that in our time we have received the messenger too. And those who have rejected his message, as we all know, that messenger of the covenant sent invitation and the news to all the countries, Muslim countries especially, the news about the miracle and everything. And if you remember, from that time, the Muslim world, because he was rejected, the Muslim world has never been the same again. It was used to be, um, in prosperity, in worldly life and everything, thriving. But then all these wars happened one after another. I remember at that time there were, it started the Bosnia war, that Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, all those lengthy wars. They're all connected to that time after the messenger of the covenant came. And till today, it's just getting worse. Everywhere you look into the Islamic world, there's some kind of problems going on. Because they are the most, close to the message, but so far away. And they all rejected it. Basically, messenger of the covenant not only came to solidify and unify all the messages, but especially to those people who already have access to Quran. But I see, today you pick up a country, any Muslim country or a community of Muslims in a country, they are being persecuted, tortured, literally being annihilated. This is what is happening, and the world is screaming, oh, they're being oppressed, this, and God is running everything. What is happening to the Muslim world? You have to see. They have abandoned the Quran. They have abandoned the message. So they are more responsible than anybody else. They were supposed to take heed. If they were representing the right religion, the world would be a different place today. So the burden of responsibility and proof really falls upon them more than any other people. But as we see, other people are converting. Whoever is accessing and have intelligence, they're taking heed. But not many Muslim countries, and they are going towards deeper down in transgression.
Masha Allah, Sister Nudra, good point.
Praise God.
Yeah, mashallah, that's an excellent point. It's really we think that we look at these stories of prophets and we just like, these are just stories. These are actual incidents taking place with actual people. These are not fairy tales. It's not like Santa Claus or something. This actually happened. When you see the movie Ten Commandments, it literally similar thing happened in the history of mankind. And we sort of detach ourselves. We make a lot of promises that, oh, if I was in Pharaoh's kingdom, when Moses, what's wrong with you people? Why don't you remember there's one when Moses was showing those his miracle that was given by God. One of the person in the community in the gathering, he stands up. I'm paraphrasing, I don't know exact word, but he says, "What's wrong with somebody who's advocating God alone? If you follow him, you'll be guided." So similar kind of comments he make. I don't remember where it's in the Quran is. So they had the message. Somehow they knew that there is God alone, and what Pharaoh is advocating is wrong. It's not like they didn't have any idea. All of a sudden, there's person coming in and saying, the Lord of the universe. So this person making this statement so they have previously some sort of message. So they had the message. It's not a surprise to us. I mean, any community, any religion you go, they have the basic concept. They had the basic knowledge. You open the books of any religion, there is mention of God alone. Even in the Hindu scriptures, they find that there's a mention of only God, but it's been changed and modified and this and that to give others a higher name in a different shape and different form, depending on just like when God sends the miracle, depending on the community. So each community have made God in a specific way. In Hinduism, in Christianity, in Islam, since Quran is very clear, so they had changed the Prophet Muhammad in a different level. It would be so. I mean, these are the tricks that is played against our mind, and we think that we are different. We are different. No, we are no different. Everybody in a similar kind of situation, where you born in a community, and then there's a message comes to you. Though you look at other people, point finger, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? But we don't look at ourselves. We are in a similar situation. I mean, if you literally look at it, it's exactly the same situation. The rules are different and things like that, but I mean, we are in a similar, I mean, God. And when you start to realize God's system, it's very amazing that subhanallah, that how God is testing each human very specific, very perfect manner, that no unjust is done, and every soul is put to test in very, it's it. And that when you have more and more understanding, and you just can't stop but praising God, that every human being, the way they are tested is, nobody's can say on the day of resurrection, oh, I was not giving the right test, or my test was harder, or I was not, the message didn't come to me, or this and that. No, God is the most just. We can never go wrong on that. So even though we see somebody's situation is not, that we can say, oh, maybe what about those people in living in village and they never had any somebody. God knows their situation. Absolutely, we don't understand how God gives them the message, because this is the divine system, God. And I mean, we will know the day of resurrection. Everybody will have their proper results, and without any error at all. Absolutely no error in God's kingdom. Masha Allah.
I also want to just make a general point that, um, of course, Quran is all, about the history, previous history of the messengers and communities, what happens to them after warnings, and then how message and the religion gets corrupted. And the history is very important because humans haven't changed. It's the same bunch of people from the Great Feud, sent in different times, for God knows the reason. Um, but the thing is, they're the same souls who rebelled, did not take the second chance, like animals and other things. So the history does repeat itself. This is a known fact that messages do get corrupted, religion does get corrupted, um, and the people deviate from the right path in different way. But same pattern, same pattern. It starts from a small thing and then it just continues. That right after the messenger of the covenant, there were so many fake messengers, and they started a little deviation here and there, and then people like a deep completely, coming up. I would call him the first Samaritan that he comes up with a whole different, translation, but theme is the same, but then deviation here and there quite a bit. And then there are people who are following him, or the following those fake messengers, and people constantly challenge God's revelations according to their ego, what ego wants or dictates them. And same thing, some issue will come up every year or few months later. Satan constantly tries. Hey, it doesn't matter if, and what people think is that, oh, it's just little thing they don't understand, but rest of the, they are worshiping God alone. When you follow anything other than God's revelation, you're not worshiping God alone. You're worshiping something else beside God. And it's the same pattern of deviating from the right path. They are not believers. They should not be considered believers, whether they have one difference and they persist upon it. I mean, there is a grace period of understanding. You might not understand a few, things in the Quran when you're a new learner of Quran. Of course, we all take time. But then you become certain and get stuck in the disbelief. No, the food dedicated to idols is not prohibited, or circumcision, or saying facing different side, direction of Qibla. It's just little bit in the beginning, but somewhere, a little bit changes come and it just continues, and suddenly you see the whole religion is unrecognizable. But what I'm trying to say is that it is so important to be vocal against the falsehood. So important. Many communities, they don't care. This is the dilemma. I was thinking about it. That unfortunately, many communities don't think that it is a problem when a falsehood enters in the religion, or somebody is bringing those ideas, others are tolerating it. You should never compromise on the truth, never, for our own sake and for God's sake. If we love God the most, we should always be standing up against the falsehood. Always say, because that would matter at the end of the days. If 10 people listen to them, maybe one will listen to you. You see there is a falsehood, a clear falsehood coming into the religion. Be vocal. No matter in the process you lose the entire community. So what? You still have God, and God is, if you have God, the majority is with you. So that is being loving God the most, never ever get swayed by peer pressure, communities. I'm feeling more and more like older I'm getting, and I'm realizing how important it is to be. God says only those devoted to Him alone will be saved. Only those, remember. And only those are going to be very little. So may God count us among only those, who love Him the most, inshallah. That was a little reminder from me to everybody.
Alhamdulillah, Sister Nujrat, I was only thinking about what you just said last night. And I find that when the adultery situation came up, and I can honestly say I haven't looked into the meat issue very well, so I'm not able to comment on that. And the circumcision issue, if a few people, which didn't include me, if they didn't stand up, then everybody probably for the next couple years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, would still go along with circumcision. And that innovation would have still been part of submission.
Absolutely. Now people have choice. Now they have educated choice, right? They know both sides. They have heard both sides. Now they can make a choice. Before they would have said, oh, well, we didn't know any difference. We continued. Nobody said nothing. Contemporaries said nothing about it, right? Quran doesn't have it, but doesn't mean that we don't follow Abraham's religion. By the way, were you listening to the group discussion last night?
No, You mean in Toronto? Oh, I should have, huh? No, I didn't.
Oh, you said last night.
No,
Last
no, no,
night.
no. I was
Oh,
thinking last night on my
oh,
own.
okay, okay, Masha.
Yeah, in life you go through. You're doing dishes, you have some thoughts. Or you're
Masha
going through,
Allah.
yeah, you're going through life and you have some thoughts, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, if nobody stood up and everybody's like lolly lolly da in the submitter community, like we have good friends, we have a nice community, why rock the boat? Then all the issues as adultery and circumcision would still be as is.
MashaAllah. See, in this time and age, this is the striving, you know. I mean, obviously, we cannot go door to door and deliver the message. The best we can do is that stick to the right path, stick to the Quran.
Yeah,
And
mashallah.
yeah, and that's the way now are you thinking like that? See, mashallah, God says believers are united, meaning no matter where they are, their thinking will be the same. No matter where in the world they are, they will ideologically united because they all are following the one truth, and truth is only one. It's not like, oh, my truth is fine, so is yours, like, where does that fit?
But I must tell you, I was like that before, although I had gotten the message, and because I went to traditional masjid, which was very more not like your typical masjid. And so I remember when I first entered the submitter community and whatever was going on, I did want it to run a different direction. But Alhamdulillah, I remember one brother saying to me, this will always happen. And I was like, okay. And I had to, start understanding things that, yes, this will happen because Satan is going to come from all direction. And once Satan come from all direction, there wouldn't be peace. And there will always be some sort of dispute going on. And I had to come to that. Muhammad and I had to come to that to understand that, we're entering something and it's not always going to be peaceful.
MashaAllah. Very nicely put, Pamela, and right in front of my eyes, I have seen you guys getting stronger and stronger. Praise be to God. You see that God says, hang on to his rope, right? It's
Yeah.
what it means. Why God is saying that? Does it mean like as soon as we became submitters, everything is gonna be fine? We're gonna be so rocked back and forth. Satan will come from so many directions that so many challenges will come. In the beginning, it will come from your nearest people, then your communities, then somebody you really look up to. They're knowledgeable and they've been submitted for a long time, and they're saying that, oh, it must be right. So see, that's where, if you really are able to stand up for the truth, whether it is a small thing or a big thing, we become vocal, and we will survive, because situation exactly become like that great feud. Oh, majority is saying that I rather be quiet. you know this happened to us in the great feud, where we were actually living in God's kingdom. So easy to do that here. So easy to
Yeah.
fall into that trap. And thank God, and more it's like slowly all those ties are cutting off. You feel kind of free. The sense of freedom with assurance of God and trusting God continues, and it becomes stronger and stronger, mashallah, with time. That no matter how amazing this community or this person looks, and what they're saying sounds so righteous and sweet, but then they're harboring all kind of fugitives. And they're happy with them. Oh, you're our brethren in faith. How could that be? How could that?
Yeah.
Then you're not loving God alone. You're not devoting yourself to God alone. You're making these people, more priority than God. Anyways, just my 2 cents. Mashallah, Pamela, you and Muhammad are, mashallah, amazing. Praise God.
God willing, we pray to stay on the right path because, we kind of just entered the community. Now it's 2 years already, yeah? And we had to sever ties quite early on.
I really can't believe it.
Yeah,
And
technically,
not and
it's
many
exactly
different,
not 2
like,
years.
you've been tested at different places. The one after another. Because
Yeah,
hey, this is
yeah,
how. Remember what God talks about the messengers and prophets, that they were shaken up until they screamed, "Where is that victory, God?"
yeah.
I can imagine, like, what kind of oppositions come in how many ways. Praise God.
Actually, the sad part of the whole thing, though, is you're being tested by submitter communities or people who claim to be submitters. Because,
That's very
yeah,
difficult one. Yeah.
yeah, because you're tested from Christians, you're tested from every direction, all different religion. But the more tests come from the submitter community.
Yeah, because when Satan said, "I'll come from the right side," that's the right side. The other side is easily recognizable, right? You say,
Yeah,
okay, to you is your religion. When these kind of challenges and oppositions come, that's what people fear the most. That is the boat which not a lot of people want to rock.
yeah, yeah, inshallah. Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah, good points. I think God knows our innermost thoughts, and we cannot fool God. Absolutely not. And we read Quran. When you have submitters who we look up to say something that is not in the Quran, and that really unexpected for us, that why you are saying that. I mean, imagine a police officer, when they even do something wrong, it becomes a headline news. So policeman did this because they are police, they're supposed to obey the law. When they could break the law, then it's become a headline news. An ordinary person does something wrong, it's okay. But if someone who has authority does something wrong, then that's something very wrong, man. Like story of Bill Clinton. Imagine an ordinary person all the time do those kind of things, but he did something. It was such a big news. So similarly, we expect these people to not act arrogant or in such a way. When you open a Quran and show them, no, this is not what God says, and they reject it and they say, no, we're not going to suppose circumcision. This is not us. We're talking about some white lies, or somebody say, do I look obese? No, you don't look obese. It means you're making somebody feel better. This is somebody's lifetime situation where you take something so important to someone's life that God has given gift to someone. You steal that part of that joy from their life forever. This is not a baby stuff. This is huge. We can only understand the magnitude of doing this to a child. We can't even understand. If these people are blinded by this, we live in a time of education. Go read what this does to you. And unless you're certain, then even if somebody who does not gonna have any children anymore, but still believe on it, it's the belief that counts. It's not if somebody cannot go to Hajj because this person does not have money, but he thinks he doesn't have to go, and of course he's never gonna go. It's just the belief that matters. So if you believe that this is part of the religion and which God does not advocate, and if you are pursuing it and you're telling even other people that this is, I'm just taking circumcision as example, that this is part of religion. No, you are preaching something God does not advocate. Now you're in a far worse situation than somebody who just believes in their head and just go with on and on, doesn't talk to anybody. Similar way, which somebody, if somebody's submitter and does works to practice God alone, is not very different to somebody who preach God's message, because we learn from Surah 4, those who follow God, God has blessed them, but who go above and beyond, they get higher ranks. In a similar way, somebody who believes this, but at the same time preach openly wrong message, they have a higher price to pay. As we were reading the last surah, number 25, the righteous, for them, situation is very tough. Retribution is double. We are believing a miracle of 19. We believe that this is the word of God. After all the message that came to us, after that, remember when Jesus, when they said, bring down the, paraphrasing, the miracle, and then God said, once I send down the miracle, if you disobey after that, then the situation is worse. So we are really walking in a very, very hot situation, and we have to be very careful. And remember the movie from Brad Pitt, The Troy? I think that was the movie where they could not penetrate the enemy's line. So what they did a trick. They cast this big giant creature and they hide their army in it so they can penetrate. Sort of, when we need to learn this kind of thing that the Satan does when he cannot penetrate, he has a lot of tricks in his sleeves. You'll be fooling yourself that you become a submitter, and then from here now on it's a green road to heaven. No, you are still living. It's like playing a basketball game or some game where you think you're clearly winning and you just stay, oh, we're gonna win. You become arrogant, and at the last score minute the opposition will score and you lose. So we should not close our eyes. The game is on. The game is on until the angel shows up on our doorstep. It is on. And anytime something you put your guards down, the enemy can penetrate, which is Satan, and he will always find a weaker spot. And so we must. God has given us such a beautiful gifts in the Quran. The prayers 23, 97, 98, where you seek refuge in God from Satan, and many other beautiful verses, du'as, in keeping and reading Quran cover to cover and staying focused. Because if you think that, oh, being laughing and being this and that is piece of cake, no. We did a horrendous crime in the previous life, and this is God's gift to us to fix our problem. And if we just take it as a joke, then we are not only fooling anybody, not even God, we are fooling ourselves. Masha Allah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I also wanted to say, if you look at history and how Satan has managed to corrupt the religion in the past, like we don't have to look too far, like look at, for example, Judaism, right? And how when submission was given to them, how these people from within, the Jewish leaders and the scholars, how they were the ones who distorted the religion from within by fabricating lies. And God says, trading away God's revelations for a cheap price. And then you see in Christianity, obviously, the followers of Jesus, from amongst the followers of Jesus, there were people that were hypocrites, who fabricated these lies and stories, and came out with the Trinity later. And same when you see with the so-called Muslims, how they added the false verses, they corrupted the religion, they came up with the Hadith and Sunnah. People from outside didn't come and give it to them. People from within who were claiming to be adherents of that religion, posing to be pious believers, were the ones who came and did all that. This is what's going on now. Obviously, people who are saying they're submitters and are claiming to be the vanguards of this religion and in the forefront of the, people who claim to be submitters, that's how Satan does his work. Like if Satan wants to change the religion, he's not gonna he's gonna first of all, put himself in a position where he looks like he's a figure of authority, where he can influence people, where people are able to trust him and believe his lies, So he's going to pose himself as a submitter. He's a community or individual or an organization where people look up to that source, and then when they have the reverence and all of that, then he knows, okay, now it's prime time. The whatever lies he comes up with, people are gonna follow it, and then that's how he controls the masses and changes people. So this is what happened to submission. You had these organizations and authorities, and so to speak, where people started looking up to them, and they were upholding conferences and all of that, and sending out newsletters and all these types of things. So people started looking up to them, and listening to them, and then they propagated lies, and then the masses believed them. So
Masha Allah. I also wanted to reflect on this the whole scene where uh, Pharaoh invited magicians. Obviously, he thinks Moses is learned some tricks and he's gonna perform magic. So he summoned all his magicians to come compete with him. And so when in 43, 44, 45, Moses said to them, "Throw what you are going to throw." They threw their ropes and sticks and said, "By Pharaoh's majesty, we will be the victors." Moses threw his staff, whereupon it swallowed what they fabricated. So this is the fact today, that these people, traditionals, they come up with all kinds of fancy hadith and sunnah books and fabrications, and how they tell you, oh, there is a science behind preserving hadith. A science. I don't know what that science is, um, and all that. So there's so much that hocus pocus, right? Fabricated hadith. It's just like these trickery and magic in a way. And then maths, Quran's miracle comes and literally swallows all those volumes. One simple truth, right? How God has actually secured it and preserved it. And those who then these we haven't read these verses, but the experts see the truth. Subhanallah, mashallah, it's God's mercy that those who possessed logic and intelligence, for those people, they had seen both, right? You had seen hadith and sunnah, and that all that fabricated magic, and then this one solid, real miracle comes, or a tangible, proof. Because basically, every time a proof came, that destroys everything else. You know how powerful that is. And then those who are sincere, or they are guided by God, they recognize the truth right away. They could see from the falsehood to the truth. And then millions of people still do not want to believe, like Pharaoh himself. You the people who reject the message after present it to them, find those who haven't heard it and they don't want to even look at it. Some people, you will present it to them thoroughly and day by day. There are some people I spend months, and at the end they will say, "Oh, it's all nice and good, very nice translation and all that." But whenever messengers, he says, "I'm a messenger," that's where he just ruins everything. So they don't want to even look deeper into it. They reject. after listening to everything, so they cannot recognize the truth. You see, like what a curse that is, and what a mercy from God that is, that He made us among those who could see. It's not our uh, something like we could have had control. It's absolute mercy of God that He grants to whomever He chooses and guides. So I can never, ever thank God enough that making us able to recognize the truth. I mean, nothing could be a bigger mercy than that. It just makes the difference of life and death. Thank you, God.
Yeah, Masha Allah. The from Moses' story, we learned that Pharaoh, the first miracle that Moses bring, the staff and the biting of the hand, and it was very obvious, and they could have taken heed at that time. But then God gave 9 profound miracles, which they have seen, the people of Pharaoh, one after another. So when you start rejecting, when you turn away from God, you are getting in a very, very serious situation, because then the test will get harder and harder. Very, very simple mistakes that before they were obvious to you, you will not listen to those. So when you reject God's even one verse, God says something, and then you take it lightly and you don't respect God's commandment, then the test gets harder for you. Then the easier verses that they're very, very clear, they will become harder for you and harder to understand. And we can clearly witness that. I can use my personal experience that I used to read literature, tafsir books, just to understand one verse, because it's blocked for us to understand. So that's why we go over so many books to understand even worse, and still I could not get a clear understanding. And this is not a bragging. This is absolutely anything good that happens to us is absolutely from God. And anything that I'm saying that this happened to me or something is absolutely coming from God. I have absolutely zero effort or anything to do with it. So now, mashallah, when you read a verse, and this is a very, very red flag, people should understand that when you read a verse, and if God has made this Rabbi Zidni Ilma, then increase my knowledge, and if God has made easy for you, be very careful. This is a blessing from God. And if you deviate after that, the Quran will become sealed from you slowly. Maybe I don't know which degrees that God goes. God may completely block you from understanding the Quran. And you're really messing with something that is very precious. This Quran is a very precious book. So when you read the Quran, I mean, don't mess with it. That's what I will tell you. I mean, if you're a submitter or believer or wherever status you are, if God makes you understand a verse, take it seriously. Don't make a joke about it, because then look at Pharaoh and the frog, lice, blood, so many clear miracles. What do? They go back to Moses, pray to you, God, that take this away. I mean, these are not even those staff and the other miracle. You are involved in it. There are frogs coming from every direction. There's blood coming. I mean, the whole community is affected by that. And then if you think you are God, Pharaoh, take it away. But you cannot, because you're not true God. You are nothing. You're going to Moses, please take this away. And then when God Almighty takes that curse away from them, what do? They go back. Even simple things become harder for you to understand. So we should not make a mockery or joke about God's commandment. God says something, we must respect and understand. I mean, I had a situation about a month ago where I didn't think that it was God's commandment. Then God, how God shows you. God took me to verse number 7, I think verse number 30 or something. God says God prohibits all evil deeds. this is what God prohibits. I mean, and these are two verses back to back. The people are prohibiting something, and then God says, why do you prohibit something? I'm paraphrasing. God prohibits all evil deeds. So then I started analyzing my situation. I say, is it? And then you can easily see your situation you are, and if it's wrong, you just prohibit it. But if you start making fun, and you find excuses to go around it, now you're not making God fool. You're making yourself own self, because you will be the loser at the end of the day of resurrection. Masha Allah, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Sorry, I have to go now. I'm babysitting my grandson, and it's me and my other daughter taking turns. So, salam from me, inshallah. Until next study, God willing.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Najat.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister
God willing,
Pamela.
enjoy your grandson.
Inshallah. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, see you. I'm going to run too, inshallah.
Salman, are you there?
Adam, what you were saying about in your last comment, were you referring to circumcision?
No, it was something else. The circumcision was like about a few months back when I started your study, and when you say that it is, but I didn't know at that time, so that was different. But mashallah, God shows you that go study, and then when you realize that what I've been told all my life was wrong, and when you learn that this is what it is, so then you reform yourself,
Right.
Mashallah.
Yeah, and we think that is something joke, but this is a very, very serious situation. We don't understand that you're taking a very precious gift from God and taking away in the name of religion. This is very serious. Why would God do something to a human being, and we are doing it to our children?
Yeah. I mean, the message of the messenger that God sent to us. Earlier we were talking about the message that we have received from the messenger. I mean, the message for us was to uphold the Quran alone as our only source of religious guidance, and his message was that the Quran is complete, perfect, and fully detailed, and we must uphold the Quran alone. And by adding these other practices from other sources, these people have abandoned the true message of the Quran. Also, in addition to the damage that they're doing to their own blood, is that they're no longer practicing the same religion. When it says in Appendix 18, any religious practices not specifically instituted in the Quran constitute a religion other than submission. So now these people are practicing things other than submission, and the moment you believe that the Quran is not complete, you basically are sealed from understanding it, like you said, blindness and deafness. So, and we see that, we see that in action, which is amazing. So we must be very careful.
Yeah. The same people, I was talking to somebody, they said, well, if messenger, we have to obey the messenger. Messenger says we have to migrate a certain place, we have to obey him. If you disobey, and a similar person is pro-insurance, and when you tell someone that messenger himself is saying that we should put our full trust in God, then that's where they slide back,
Right. Yeah, it's like
because they need it.
Yeah, because when it says, when the judgment is when you invite them to God and the messenger, some of them get upset. But when the judgment is in their favor, they readily accept it, Yeah.
Yeah, and then people start making excuses. Oh, that's just audio, and they could have override it, or this and that. All kind of excuses comes into play.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that, a messenger of God will never fabricate lies and attribute them to God knowingly, or unknowingly even. God wouldn't allow a messenger of God to come and fabricate lies about him, you know.
Mm.
And that's literally what they say is like, well, that is his opinion. So a messenger, they believe that a messenger of God can come and just lie about God. I mean, he said either I'm a messenger or I'm someone who's very evil who fabricated lies about God. And so, like, you know, and then coming up with all sorts of excuses to say, you know, why it's not in the mentioned by name, you know, insurance. I mean, so coming up with their own explanations, you know, I mean, obviously they're trying to put words in Rashad's mouth, for example, for why it's not in the appendix or something like that, you know, because I think they said it was in the index and then it was not in the index, like later on it was taken out. And the thing is that, yeah, I mean, God controls what comes in and goes, but the thing is that you don't even know who put it in the index and who took it out, or why was it, maybe it was somebody you know, as a typo they probably put it in, or someone took it out. The thing is, you can't use that to say anything, you know, when you have clear evidence in multiple places where he's specifically, you know, instructing people that, you know, this is what it is. And we see, logically speaking, it's exactly what that is. Like, scientifically, you know, there's studies that prove the insurance industry is a gamble. You know, they take a chance on you based on your health, for example. You know, like how much of a risk you are. The higher of a risk you are from like an investment standpoint, the more you pay for your insurance, right? So that's exactly because they're looking at the likeliness of them losing on you, you know. So it's very simple to understand if, you know, someone has an open mind, that it is gambling. And for them to think that, you know, he would just say that is obviously very ridiculous. But the thing is that, you know, the all of these things are coming from the same kind of people, you know. Like the same people, for example, we were talking about circumcision earlier, right? The same people propagated circumcision. The same people propagated this insurance idea, you know, and later it got even worse. So the thing is, we just, as submitters, like, you know, it's not easy being a submitter, first of all, because first you have to accept the message, and then you have to fight you have to fight the beliefs, you know, from within submission, you know, people from all angles coming and telling you what submission is, you know. But the thing is, mashallah, God has given us the message, you know. We have, even though we have all these people and all these groups and all these quote unquote communities, the thing is, we also have the message, we also have the messenger. And so our duty, you know, we're living in the age of information. Our duty is to look at the message. What does the Quran say? What does the messenger say? And then it doesn't matter what people around you are saying, because, you know, that's exactly what the messenger of the covenant said in the last conference. You know, he says, for example, he was telling people at the conference, he says there's going to be, Satan's point of view has to be represented, you know, especially here at this conference, you know. Satan's point of view is going to be represented, and people are going to come and talk to you, and they'll try to divert you, and, you know. But she says, your principle is to follow the Quran. If it's not in the Quran, you know, you don't believe it, and no matter who's talking to you. But the thing is, the part where he says no matter who's talking to you, that part people obviously don't pay attention to, because for people it matters who's talking to them. You know, you are this person, you know, you have been a submitter that many years. Oh, okay, well, I will listen to you. If you were with Rashad, you know, and this and that, you must really know more than me because you were with him and I wasn't, you know. And these types of natural things, I mean, people forget, they don't take it seriously, and they fall for these things very easily. You know, oh, you have such a big community, I should definitely listen to you because you're definitely doing something right, or you have a lot of money, you know.
That's a good point, Suleiman.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Masha Allah.
Masha Allah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, mashallah, we should pray to God, and if we have any misunderstanding about anything, we should continuously, because God is the teacher of the Quran, and this is His book, and He is the best teacher. And whenever we get in a situation we don't understand, we should pray to God that increase my knowledge, because Quran is like layers. Like you understand one thing, and then the more you deeper you go in there, and you have different concepts popping up to you. So we can never grasp the whole. I mean, we can't even imagine understanding even a fraction of it, because this Quran is very, very deep. Like 7 oceans times 2 would not even justify this book. So we should always go back to God and to pray to God that keep us on the right path. 7 times a day we pray to God that guide us on the right path. And when we say that to God, we should be very, very sincere. Like when you go to your boss and when you want a promotion or something, you really humbly say, sir, please, I have this. Can you please, sir, I have this problem. I have that problem. Would you please? So we should be humbly praying to God that Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, not just mind is at work, uh, I forgot that, I need to pick up my laundry and this and that, all those things going in your head, and you saying, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, block all incoming distractions from this worldly matters, and full focus on that you're talking to God, because He's the one who's going to guide you. Like when you think watching your favorite movie, even your kids or someone is making noise, you tell them, please be quiet, I'm watching a movie or something important. If we can do that for a movie or something, just imagine how important that is when we talk to God, to just completely close all the distractions and just focus fully on God. MashaAllah.
Yeah,
I think Yusuf is having connection issues.
Yeah, I think some submitter told me that if sometime what if a submitter community blocks you or something like that? If something like that happen, if you are following and then they don't, I guess it doesn't matter somebody blocks me or not or something. Anything happens, I'm gonna go back to God, and God is the one I'm gonna report to. And I should. God knows my innermost thoughts, and I need to full focus
70
on
verse
Quran. MashaAllah.
36. Yes, it's easy. There's no. We have enlightenments from the messenger. We have what God says in the Quran, and we have to check whatever people come say about a practice. You know, we have everything to 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 be guided simply by the Quran and what the messenger has enlightened for us. That's
By the
all we
way,
need.
one of the submitters on YouTube is asking if there are any. Can anyone tell me if there is a submitters community in the Netherlands? So Yusuf, do you know? Since you're
Yeah, in Netherlands, I'm in Belgium. That's my neighbor country.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I can. I can contact this person.
Okay,
And,
sure, yeah, perfect. Yeah, they're on the
inshallah.
pen, so I will.
Is he now connected?
Okay, so Kefer Bektas. I'll send you the profile.
Okay,
and contact them.
inshallah.
Yeah, like Rich were saying, the last conference, and one of the person was not accepting, saying something about the messenger. So when you come so close, the higher power comes higher responsibilities, and a minor mistake can be counted as a big. So it's all different levels where you are.
I have a question. How do you address this topic, right? Um, so submitters, right? The men pray in front and the women behind, which I think is a is the best idea ever. But people often say when you go to Hajj, the men and women pray together.
Very like next to each other.
Yeah, I think when they go to Hajj, I've never gone to Hajj, but when they go to Hajj, it's all mixed up. And I would imagine with millions of people there, it'd be very difficult for separating the men and women.
Yeah, I guess God. I mean, God is the most merciful. He knows the situation, and obviously, in that big crowd, millions of people, it's just not practical. If you have to have somebody with you. I guess people go in groups, and each group stay together, something like that.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. They're using it to justify men and women praying together at masjid.
No, that's now look, we're taking a situation where it's a very specific situation where safety and a lot of other things are concerned. And we are applying that situation in a normal condition. Like, for example, if you're in a war zone, you're in a different situation. Now, you cannot apply the same rules to a peaceful community. Now, you're in a small community or anywhere, it's easily can be done. And how Messenger, we can see the videos from Messenger, how they did the contact prayer where one is standing in the front and there's a men behind and the women behind.
Masha
We have clear
Allah.
example.
Masha Allah. I wanted someone to address it because I see that's one of the things surfacing right now, that masjids who want to they're saying that's equality, and they're having mixed groups together.
Submitters?
No. No. But
Oh yeah, so
our YouTube go on air, so I thought if it gets addressed, then that can help people to understand why they should not in a masjid. The
well, I
men and
mean, they
women.
have bigger problems if they're not submitters, and
Yes, for sure,
yeah.
for sure.
I mean, their prayers are nullified first of all because they mention other idols besides God, and I mean, then following other innovations on top of that. So, yeah, the thing about the prayers, obviously, people with this issue or any other such detail that people dispute is that the prayers have to be done in the way we inherited them from Abraham, and those details are not mentioned in the Quran. But we're not supposed to deviate from that format in any way. For example, people saying you could pray with your shoes on a normal basis, or do the Friday prayer sitting on chairs, or this type of stuff unnecessarily, like when you're not forced by circumstance, or praying next to women, or women leading the prayer. I mean, all of these things, these are innovations. So thing is, we have to follow the format and the way it was given to us. And even, for example, the messenger of the covenant gave the example of how after the prayer, when he does the prayer at home, he would sit down and commemorate God and implore God for forgiveness and all of that, right when he's sitting down. But when he's public, he says, you'll notice as soon as we finish the prayer, immediately get up and congratulate everybody, and I don't do that because when people see you doing that outside, like the prayer ends and you prostrate and you ask God for forgiveness or whatever, and you do it in public, people will start to think that it's part of the prayer, and it becomes an innovation. So he says that's why we avoid doing that, and innovations will creep up on us. So we must avoid that. And same thing with the women leading the prayer. I mean, this is the system that God has designed. If there's no men present to lead, then it makes sense for just women to lead amongst themselves. But when a man is there, a man has to lead, and that's the way the prayers were given to Abraham, and that's how we're supposed to follow. We're not supposed to add or remove anything or change it just because we don't see a clear prohibition about it or thing in the Quran that you can't do that. Like, for example, somebody can't say that there's no such thing in the Quran saying I can't dance during my contact prayer, so now I can dance during my contact prayer. That kind of a logic, they can apply to anything, or so we have to be mindful of that. A lot of people who claim to follow Quran alone obviously don't understand this simple fact. And then when you see all these Quran aloners, for example, who don't accept the messenger, falling off the path and losing all the practices such as Hajj and contact prayers and stuff like that. But then you also have people who claim to be submitters also, like doing these similar things, and not trusting the messenger is another part. I mean, you have the messenger of God showing us, this is how you do it. So all we have to do is just really just follow. And people make it so difficult for themselves. Obviously, just that's why God says, the believers, they say we hear and we obey, and that's it. God has made it so simple, but we humans, are the ones who make it harder on ourselves.
Salman, are we still online? On stream?
Yes, we are. If you guys don't have any more comments, I think we have been on for a good 1 hour and 46 minutes. So we do have like 5 people on YouTube, but if nobody else has any questions or comments, God willing, we could end this.
Yeah, that sounds good by me.
Okay. So, all right then. So, God willing, okay. So, for those who joined us on YouTube, thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next session is going to be on Quran Study session is going to be on Wednesday at. Okay. Well, there's one question. Okay, so one of the submitters just asked the question: can a woman lead the sermon, the khutbah? So the answer to that is obviously if there are no men present in that congregation, then yes, then she can. If there's just women and perhaps children, then the woman can definitely give the sermon and lead the prayer. But if a man is present, then a man has to lead it. Okay. So hopefully that clarifies the question. Okay, so for those of you guys who joined us, our next study session is going to be on Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, God willing, and I believe it's going to be my turn. Yusuf, when can you lead, God willing, the study? Do you think you can do it on next Saturday? Or this Wednesday? I know Wednesday is usually harder for you because of our time difference. He's not there. Okay. Well, God willing, inshallah, I'll be the teacher. Inshallah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, guys. God bless you.
Islam.